Friends of Formula One, what just happened in the Zandvoort sprint qualifying is exactly the kind of thing that makes you jump out of your seat. Because Charles Leclerc, at the final corner, was first. You heard that right, first, with 0.2 of a second over George Russell and 12 hundredths over Lando Norris. Then came the final energy deployment straight, and there was nothing left. Russell hit 317 kilometers per hour, Norris 307, and Charles topped out at 302. That is how a pole position that was already in the bag turned into a third-place finish by just 50 thousandths of a second. And I am also going to tell you about a bold, almost shocking call from Ferrari, because Maranello fitted the new floor on both cars without ever having run it for a single lap. Then there is the Lewis-Hamilton situation, only 7th and well below his usual level, and I have a specific theory on why he struggled so much. Plus, I will give you the number nobody is talking about. Ferrari's race pace in free practice was genuinely impressive, and we all know the prancing horse tends to trade qualifying performance for race distance strength. And finally, we have Leclerc's own words on the development program. Let me walk you through all of it right now. If you do not want to miss any updates on Ferrari and Formula One, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date. With that said, let us get straight into the detailed breakdown. We start at the beginning because the single free practice session already told us a great deal. Ferrari finished 4th and 5th, but the position is honestly beside the point. The SF26 showed excellent balance right from the start, with a strong front end and a rear that stayed composed and planted, even under traction, and this despite track grip conditions that were far from ideal. The cold temperatures seemed to genuinely suit the Italian car. There was also an interesting difference between the two drivers in how they prepared the tires. Lewis Hamilton found his best time thanks mainly to more effective front tire preparation early in the lap, and a strong read of the long, sweeping middle sector. Charles Leclerc, on the other hand, looked uncomfortable at the very first corner. But then the Monegasque showed an almost perfect rear end through the final part of the circuit, all the way through the acceleration zone to the finish line, and it is no coincidence that the fastest absolute sector 3 time of the session was his. The weak point seemed to be single lap pace and the ability to fully extract performance from the soft compound, though the gaps to the rivals were incredibly small. But the race pace simulations from both Hamilton and Leclerc were genuinely strong. And that matters a lot because Ferrari historically tends to give up a little in qualifying to be significantly stronger over race distance. Now let us talk about the decision that tells you everything about the mindset at Maranello right now. In free practice, the new floor had not been used on either car. The only available units were being preserved. The dilemma was real: fit it blind and risk upsetting that excellent balance, or play it safe. Ferrari chose the bolder path. In sprint qualifying, the new floor went on both cars without a single lap of prior running. A supremely confident call, a genuine show of strength, and a statement about how much the team trusts what the wind tunnel is telling them. Remember what that component is designed to deliver: higher quality and more stable downforce, which is exactly what you need on a track like Zandvoort. McLaren also arrived with updates, though theirs were focused on the rear of the car. And now to the qualifying session itself, which was simply spectacular. Zandvoort delivered a sprint qualifying that was incredibly tight, with the top 4 drivers covered by less than 1/10 of a second. George Russell took pole, stopping the clocks at 1 minute, 11 seconds, and 567 thousandths, bouncing back to the front after a difficult stretch. Behind him was not his teammate, but Lando Norris, just 41 thousandths back. Then Charles Leclerc in third, 55 thousandths away, and Oscar Piastri fourth at 99 thousandths. Andrea Kimi Antonelli was fifth, roughly 2.5 tenths behind his teammate, in a session that was not clean for him, affected by a trip through the gravel and an imperfect final sector on his decisive lap. Max Verstappen was 6th, Lewis Hamilton 7th. McLaren and Ferrari, boosted by their respective updates, were at the front for virtually the entire session, but the final blow was landed by the Brackley squad. McLaren showed real strength in the second sector through those long sweeping corners, but gave back time and aerodynamic efficiency in both the first and third splits. And now, the key moment of the entire afternoon. Because Charles put together a lap that was very nearly perfect, he actually described it over the radio as one of his best performances of the season. And the numbers back that up in a striking way. At the final corner, the Monegasque was first, 0.2 up on Russell and 0.12 clear of Norris. Then came exactly what we feared, and it is the real limitation of the SF26 right now. In the final energy deployment, there was simply nothing left. Russell hit 317 kilometers per hour. Norris reached 307. Charles was stuck at 302. 5 kilometers per hour down on the leader through that final stretch. And just like that, a pole that was practically already won became a third-place finish. 50 thousandths of a second, almost nothing, lost entirely in the last piece of straight before the finish line. But let us not misread that result, because third is still a very strong outcome. Leclerc slotted himself between the two McLarens, putting the car on the second row with a tiny gap to the top, and on a circuit that has historically not been kind to Ferrari machinery. Now to the other side of the garage because Lewis was noticeably off the pace. The 7-time world champion made a mistake in the first sector, a sharp correction that cost him time, and he was not clean through the third sector either, with oversteer on the exit of the opening corner. The result was 7th place, well clear of his teammate in the wrong direction. And here is an interesting theory. Perhaps Hamilton found it harder to adapt to the new floor, while Leclerc proved much better at adjusting quickly to a different setup. It is something to watch closely because even ahead of tomorrow's main qualifying session, a small setup change could make it easier for him to get the tires working and find significantly more pace. Let us also look at what Leclerc said on his arrival in the Netherlands, because the picture he painted was sharp and clear. There is a very defined development program, and there are still many things we want to improve. He was very direct about where the main limitations of the first part of the season lie. The engine and the power we currently have, compared to our rivals' power units, are the areas where we are falling short the most, and that is where our focus is concentrated. And after what we saw in the final straight of Charles' lap, that analysis really hits home. Leclerc also explained how the team structures its work. There is a dedicated group working on the engine, and there are separate departments working on the chassis and aerodynamics across very different areas. The program is already set, we know where we want to go, and that is a good thing. He also added a technically important detail. With previous generations of cars, the fact that they ran very close to the ground was very difficult, and sometimes you did not get in reality what you saw in the wind tunnel. We have not really had that problem this year, and that is very positive for development. That also explains why Ferrari felt confident enough to bolt on an untested floor without a second thought. And there is one final theme Leclerc emphasized strongly: operational execution. Thinking about the last race weekend, I think as a team we could have done a better job in terms of execution, and that aspect is so important in a year like this. I think it is more critical than ever. Communication is always fundamental, but this year the smallest mistakes you can make in terms of weekend planning have a massive impact on the result. And looking at the broader picture across all the rivals, Leclerc added an observation that applies to everyone. When we did the analysis of the first half of the championship, I think it is clear that something we have not seen in a long time happened, which is that a lot of points were lost by every single team. That is mainly because these cars are extremely complex to optimize. This fight is far from over,